Hello, my friend, and welcome to Silent Sales Machine Radio, the podcast for e-commerce warriors who are looking to use the internet creatively to launch and grow beautiful businesses that they can be proud of. That's what we do around here. That's what we've been doing for 23 years. Can you believe it? We're approaching 1,000 episodes of this podcast, and it's not going to be me today as your host. You're going to have Robin, Joy, and Brian Olson. They're going to join us here in just a moment and do the bulk of the show today. But I listened to this episode already, and I had to record some content for you in advance because one of the topics they talked about was how overwhelming it can be to be a new student in our community, because there really are a lot of different people with a lot of different strategies and ideas floating around our group, pursuing all kinds of interesting strategies for growing beautiful businesses. But the thing that we want you to focus on if you're new, unless you have a really good reason to look somewhere else, if you're new, we want you to focus on the Amazon Replens model. Now, we're not saying you need to stay there for the rest of your life, but we are saying that's the lowest hanging fruit business model we've identified of all the dozens of ways that you can earn money online. Lowest risk, lowest barrier to entry, highest odds of success. You can wade in nice and slow at your own pace. It has a bright, beautiful future. It checks all the boxes. That's why we're so excited about this strategy. We've seen many people use just that strategy by itself to build multiple seven-figure, beautiful businesses online. Some people think that's all we teach here. It's not. That's all we teach to new students unless they have a really good reason to do something else. And it is the core concept of the book. And this is the reason I'm recording this intro before I turn it over to Brian and Robin Joy. Because again, they start the episode out by saying, man, there's just so many things going on in the Facebook group. It can be overwhelming. People kind of bounce around if they're new. We don't want you to do that. We want you to get focused and lock in on the new seller strategies called Replens, as taught in the Proven Amazon course. But I've got a book for you. If you find yourself kind of scattered and kind of distracted, maybe chasing shiny object syndrome, bouncing from thing to thing, and nothing seems to be working, there's a book I would strongly recommend that you read. Go through it. It'll take you a couple hours, and it will, I think, completely change your life, as it's done for thousands of other people, to get you focused on where should I start this journey. Actually, I've got a copy of that book that was translated into Korean a few years ago. That's right. It's an international seller. It's sold well over 1 million copies globally to e-commerce sellers, people trying to use the internet to build beautiful businesses. I'm talking about the Silent Sales Machine book right here. I've got a copy of it in Korean. Now, you're probably going to want the English version, I would imagine. This is an older copy. This was, I'm not even sure which version this was. This was like version 7 or 8, I think. I had a Korean publisher contact me and say, hey, could we pay you and publish this in Korean? Sure, I'll take that check. So they made a bunch of copies and sold them, and they kept all the proceeds. I got paid up front. I have no idea how well it sold. But the point is, this book has helped so many people get started to discover what is the landscape of opportunities on e-commerce in general. What's the landscape? Where should I be avoiding? What should I be looking at? What skills am I going to need? Which, hint, not much, if any. You might have to unlearn things more than you have to learn anything new to do this well. But that book is going to take you from where you are, help you plot a roadmap to get where it is you want to be, and tell you which opportunities. We've identified there's only 3 different opportunities on the internet. Now, there's thousands of different ways that you can earn money online, don't get me wrong, but they all fall into 3 different categories. And I talk about each of those categories, the benefits, the challenges of each, how you can start to blend all 3 over time. It's a beautiful strategy that's laid out in this book. And again, it's a bestseller with thousands of 5-star reviews on Amazon, but I want to give it to you completely free. That's the point. I probably should have said this sooner. If you go to silentjimdotcom/free11, you want to get version 11 of this book. All prior versions, while there's some good stuff in all of them, all the way back, 20 years, version 1. There's some good stuff in there. There's some timeless principles in there, but you don't want to be wasting your time reading version 1 through 10. You want to check out version 11. silentjim.com/free11 gets version 11 into your hands. And if there's any confusion at all in your mind over all the different opportunities that are out there, It's written from my perspective, having been around for a couple decades, people who are using the internet so creatively to build beautiful businesses. I've learned so much from our core leadership team, from all those successful students. All those lessons and those principles are crammed into this book. It should be a $20 or $30 book, but we love giving it away completely free, no obligation. Go to silentjim.com/free11 and get your mind straight, get some clarity on what the landscape of opportunities are, where you should focus your attention, and how to avoid many of those disastrous business models that look great on Instagram when you watch that 15-second video. But what you're really doing is building a very expensive dead end that's going to suck a bunch of money out of your bank account. So many scams out there. I teach you how to find and recognize them. Let me give you one little tip, then I'm going to turn it over to Brian and Robin Joy for a great episode today. Here's my tip. You can avoid ever being scammed online with a business opportunity. Very simple. You'll be shocked you haven't thought of this yourself once I reveal it to you, but here's what you do. The next time you see a great ad or a great newsletter or a great email or website proposing some incredible business opportunity, and you see the pretty pictures and the boats and the piles of cash and all these big claims and all these faces of people saying, this is wonderful. What do? You send a simple email or message to the person who created that page, and you say this. Very simple statement. I actually teach this in the book. And this is one of the many practical ideas I'm going to give you in the book. You send an email or message to the person that created that page and said, hey, I would love to hang out with all of your successful students. I would love to be able to experience firsthand their version of their story, telling how they went from knowing nothing to building a successful business using your strategies. Where can I go to get that information? 99% of the time, you're going to get nothing back. That means keep your wallet in your pocket. However, in our community, I'm very proud to say that if you ask us that question, we're going to send you to this podcast where we have hundreds of interviews with our successful students, completely free for you to explore. We're going to send you to our Facebook group with over 80,000 members, where we have thousands of people who have testified to the fact that the strategies we teach work. And you can hang out with them and interact with them and ask your questions of them for hours, days, weeks, or months if you choose to, before you spend a penny on any of our programs. That's how you avoid being scammed. That's how you make sure that you're getting into a legitimate opportunity. You go to where there's other people who have already done it, and you hang out with them and you learn from them before you start investing in a new strategy. It's a 100% effective way to avoid ever being scammed. Hey, thanks for being a listener to Silent Sales Machine Radio as we blaze towards 1,000 episodes of this show. You are the best part of this show. You're the reason we do this show. It's an honor to serve you. I'm going to turn it over to my good friends, Brian and Robin Joy now. They've got some good info for you today.
Welcome back to Silent Sales Machine Radio. We are your co-hosts. I'm Brian.
And I'm Robin Joy.
And this is Coach's Corner.
Hi, everybody.
So you got some questions this week around, like, maybe something someone was seeing posted somewhere and maybe they didn't understand the questions and answers. And so...
Yeah, so what's been happening the last couple of weeks that I've heard a bit of is conversations in the Facebook group, in my Silent Team Facebook group, which has, I don't know, 80,000 members now? Yeah. It's a big group. And so there are a lot of people in there that have a lot of different strategies. There are a lot of very experienced people and a lot of newer sellers, a lot of people who are, different types of e-commerce, not necessarily Amazon. And sometimes there are conversations going on there that for someone who's coming into the community, it's hard to reconcile all that with what they're being told by their coach or what, if they're in Kickstarter or whatever. Sometimes there's a gap there and it gets a little overwhelming. Wait, should I be doing this? Should I be doing that? Where is all this information? So
you go down a lot of rabbit holes because there's a ton of information out there, right?
There is a ton of information, and that's a good thing.
Yeah.
That don't think that's not good, because I like to say that's what makes room for all of us. We all have a little different take on it. So what I try to do is help people understand that they need to figure out where they are and how much of this they need to use or can take advantage of, and what they're just not ready to go down into yet. You can't take 18 classes at the same time and expect to be proficient at any one, right?
A great point. This is like the same thing with the content that's in the Proven Amazon course. You don't go you don't go consume all of that content and then get started.
Not as courses, not as, you don't just go sit down and say, all right, I'm going to make my way through PAC.
The library that is PAC.
Yeah, it's more like a library, right? It's like a library of courses. So let's talk about that just a little bit. When you go into PAC, first thing that's presented to you, the Proven Amazon course we're talking about, first thing that's presented to you is the Kickstart program. If you're a new seller and you haven't sent in a shipment to Amazon yet, you're just getting started, great. Kickstart is a great place to start. I'll meet you there. We'll help you get your account open. We'll help you get your first item sent into Amazon. We'll help you get set up and ready to do that over and over again. If you're a little bit more experienced and you go into the Proven Amazon course, you've already taken the Kickstart or you didn't need to. There's also a roadmap in there that you can take. Then you have some kind of ways to get through PAC, but it looks like a lot at once, right? So in the beginning, I do get this question a lot. What courses do I need to be taking? Because you said I'm not ready for wholesale yet, so maybe I shouldn't take the wholesale course day one. Bingo. Yeah. Good. You got that. So what should I do? There is an Amazon 101 course, right? That we put together for people to help them set up their seller account with Amazon, right? There is Replens 2.0. That's Jimmy Smith going through kind of what the Replens process is, what it means, where it came from, how you do it. It's a great course. And then there are also some other courses that you might take advantage of. There are a whole bunch of courses of how to source, different ways to source products that you might want to sell on Amazon. There's the bot sourcing. There's Keep It 360. That's got sourcing in it. There are so many ways. I can't name them all, but the sourcing ones, and then there's some supporting ones. There's an accounting course in there. There's I think a Google Sheets in there. Anyway, this is kind of the area to stay in until you kind of build up your business a little bit. And then there are other strategies that you can add on after that. So that's kind of a picture of what the Proven Amazon course looks like as a library at a very, very high level. What do you think about that, Brian? Do you agree?
Yeah, that's good. I was just going to go back to kind of the original thing we were talking about, which is there's a lot of information. And a lot of rabbit trails you can go down, right? Yes. So I think what you were talking to me before we got started was someone said, well, I saw this question, so I went here and I did this, and then I went down this path, and then I went down that path, and then all of a sudden, what I'm reading or listening to does not make any sense to me. Yeah. And it's because a lot of times these topics can get to an advanced state that, a newer seller hasn't experienced. They don't have enough experience to be able to sort of reconcile that whole conversation and say, how is this meaningful to me? And it's not meaningful to you in some cases yet, but it will be at some point in the future if you stick with it, right? Sure.
It may or may not. You may never choose to use that strategy, or you may in the future. But yeah, you're absolutely right. I have been, and that's where I started. Thank you for bringing me back. I have been getting questions like that. Hey, I'm getting overwhelmed. I just need one place to go here. Right. And so we as coaches, we kind of, you've heard before the Jim Cockrum coaching program, we don't have a curriculum that you go step 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, because, different people have different experiences. They're in different places in life. They're in different places in, how much money they have, how much time they have. It's going to be different for everybody. So we tailor it. But when we have people come to us as coaches and they say, okay, I want to learn how to do this, it's going to be different if we coach someone who's never sent in a shipment before, or they've just, they've done a couple $1,000s a month, but they kind of stuck there, as opposed to someone who comes to us and says, okay, I'm getting ready to hit 100,000 a month. I'm outsourced. I'm ready to, take on another strategy. Can you help me out? Just tie some stuff up for me, get me back to the basics.
Our approach is completely different. If you have just sent in a few shipments, or if you're doing $15,000, $25,000 a month, or if you're doing $50,000 to $75,000 a month, right? And we can't necessarily take everything that we are teaching the $75,000 a month or $100,000 a month seller and say, okay, brand new person, this is what you do.
Yes.
Because there's a lot of things in there that don't translate yet, because you have to meet certain milestones and have a certain level of experience before some of these other things actually are going to make sense, right?
For instance,
so when we're talking with someone who's doing $50,000 to $75,000 a month, we generally don't talk about, here's some parameters to ensure that you're not going to get in trouble when you're evaluating an ASIN.
Yeah, because they don't evaluate an ASIN at a time at that level.
Well, they may or may not, but they already have that skill set.
Right.
We don't need to go back and
they
say,
have a balance.
how do we need to do that? Yeah, they have a balance. So there's a couple of reasons that doesn't apply to them or may not apply to them.
Right.
Now, I do want to circle back to some input that I got from a coaching client of mine where something we did teach him was beneficial to him.
Yeah.
Even though he was already down the wholesale path.
The fundamentals are always important. I don't care how much you're doing. I agree.
Right. But, there's like, this person who's doing $50,000 a month or more may have a higher tolerance of risk than a new person does.
That's correct.
Right? They may have different parameters set around what they believe is a testable or replenishable item than a new person does, or what we're teaching a new person. And the reason it's different is because we're trying to, a newer person doesn't have that experience.
Right.
And we're trying to keep them from jumping into the deep end when they don't really know how to swim just yet, right?
Right.
And whereas the person who's doing $50,000 a month, well, they're doing triple backflips with a twist off of the high dive, because they've been doing this for a long time, right?
Right. And it comes quicker than you think.
It does.
Looking back, looking forward, it seems so
forever.
long. Yeah. But I keep telling people, you know what? If you keep being consistent, 6-9 months from now, we're going to be having a completely different conversation. And we do often.
Some of the things we talk about with newer people are some of the fundamentals, right? We want to make sure that we're looking at ASINs that have a decent sales velocity.
Right.
Why is the sales velocity important?
Yeah, because we can't afford to just lose that into nothingness forever.
Because we don't want to
start paying it for it.
The important part is this is money out of our pocket at this point.
That's right.
And we don't want to just take it out of our pocket and say, well, I don't care. I don't really care when I get it back.
You're right.
We do want to. We do care when we get it back.
Because there's no other income coming on. If you have a larger book of business, you've got other income going on. You're busy. You might not notice it as much, but you're going to notice. Trust me. If you've only got 10 things for sale and one of them has been there for, 30, 40 days, you're going to be noticing.
Yeah. You just don't have that flexibility. So you can't necessarily approach a buy and hold strategy. You can, but your expectations need to be
very, very different.
Appropriate in that situation. Whereas most new sellers, we want to get new sellers to do a number of reps. Get through the cycles many times as you can. Well, many times as you can. That's not a good example.
That's not
the planned
we're shooting
amount. For 12
you make a plan
times.
with your coach. Yes.
Yeah, we're shooting for 12 times, right? I've always said, give me 3 months. Give us 3 months, right? Give us 3 months. So 12 times. We can get you through the cycle 12 times.
Consistency.
Consistently, yes.
Yes.
Frequency. Then you're going to be then you're going to have a lot of experience. You're going to have a lot of things selling. You're going to have all these things are going to be working in your favor.
Well, and you're going to, by then, if you're consistent and you keep sending in items, even if you're just breaking even, now you've got a chance to open up your book of business because more brands and categories are going to be available to you. You have a bigger chance of finding profitable ASINs, which brings me to, something that we talk about a lot. You don't know if it's profitable unless you test it, right? You can't test it if you're not approved to sell it. How do you get approved to sell it? I'm building blocks here, right? Okay. How do you get approved to sell it? Sell more stuff that you can sell, no matter if you're making a profit or not. That's how you get more brands and categories opened up to you so that you can find something that works better for you as time goes by, right?
Yep.
So that's why we don't want to limit ourselves in our first, 12 weeks or more, before we're at $10,000 a month in sales, probably, which might take 6, 9, 12 months, depending on how quick you're going. But we don't want to limit ourselves and say no to profit. Again, don't forget, John Larson, all profit is good profit. Some profits better than others, right?
Right.
We're just gooder than others. That's what
Gooder,
it says.
yeah.
Yeah. Some profits just gooder than others.
So the other thing we don't typically talk about with a more veteran seller is, say, capital protection.
Yeah.
So one of the fundamentals for us when we're teaching newer people is make sure you're not getting into a situation where you're going to lose money to get out of that item. It doesn't mean it won't happen, even with the frameworks that we're giving out, but it does provide a high level of trust that it's going to work out in your favor.
Right. You have pretty good evidence of that. And if you have more than one thing going on, likely something else is going to make money if you have a basement. So if we have the foundation built at a certain amount, we know we don't have to go farther down than that. Then we can build up on that as we go. But you got to start somewhere.
This reminds me of like when Jim Cochran posts pictures of his items selling above the buy box.
Yeah.
Okay. And in the past, he's included screenshots, and there's a course out there where he walks you through all that. And he'll be having his item priced at a place where I didn't see any evidence it was ever priced that high.
Yeah.
But Jim has been doing this for a long, long time, right? So I'm not going to teach Jim how to sell above the buy box by saying, oh, just go pick an ASIN and, here's how you do this. He has enough experience to know how to do it, obviously.
He's putting money into testing and finding, going much deeper. But that brings me to a good point, and we talk about this a lot this week, is that selling above the buy box, for some reason, people feel like this is an advanced concept. It's something that's very complicated. And it's really not that complicated. And we encourage all sellers, new or other, especially when you're new, see if you can sell it above the buy box. It's just that simple. See if you can sell it at a price that you need it to be, as opposed to the price that you're seeing in front of your eyes.
At this moment in time.
Yeah. If it was sent to you. Yeah. We know there's a multidimensional buy box. Yeah. We know there are other things involved in that price, and that may or may not be the price that you can sell it at. As long as you're protecting your capital, why wouldn't you go ahead and test at a higher price? You can always go down if it doesn't sell at that price.
Just test it.
Always go down. It's just a test.
Just test it.
It's just a test.
Yeah. The one things that we were talking about last week was if you're going to test it there and you do need to go down on your price, our suggestion is don't go down on your price until your item is in the prime window for somebody.
Yes.
Right?
We talked about that last week a lot.
If you are adjusting your price when your item is not yet available, it's the whole brownie example. Here, I'll sell you my brownie for 75 cents. It's not available for 4 hours, but whatever.
So if you're hungry, too bad. I hope you're still hungry in 4 hours.
I did get some feedback this week from a coaching client of ours that had been selling for, 6-9 months before he came into the coaching program. And we went through some of the fundamentals, and he all of a sudden, got really consistent with his sourcing and his shopping and his shipping. And every time I would meet with him, he's like, yeah, this is actually going really good. I don't have any real, pain points at this point in time. And then, as normally happens, you start building your business, and then they disappear. They get busy. The coaching client. Yes.
They're running their business.
Because what happens? Yeah, it's not like I have all this time where I can just call my coach anytime I want, or schedule a session anytime I want, because I'm busy, right?
Because I'm busy.
I'm sourcing, I'm shopping, I'm shipping, I'm doing all the stuff that I need to do. But I did get an email from him after I hadn't heard from him in a couple of months, and he was like, just wanted to let you know things are going great. I haven't run into any major issues. But one of the things that I did was, now that I know how to test an item, I started going back to some of the items I'd sold before I ever got into coaching and reevaluating them, and found that some of them were testable and others weren't. But now that I know how to test, I can follow this process, and I've had many that have actually turned out to be successful.
And he's doing really well.
He's doing very well.
That's something about the Jim Cochran coaching program. There are success stories happening all the time. People are all the time coming back to us and saying, hey, that worked. One of the things that I get sometimes is, I've been selling for a while, but I got stuck. I just can't quite get over this hump. So help me do that. So we work for a little while, and then they come back to me after a few sessions. They say, so I took what I had in my book of business, and those ones that were not moving or that were not doing well for me, And I looked at them and I realized, had I been using this testing process, I never would have tested those to start with. So it makes sense to me that those didn't go well.
Right.
I didn't give myself the best chance. Not that everyone that you do with the parameters we teach is going to go well, but it makes sense why we chose those parameters. So yeah, I mean, the coaching program is just, in my opinion, really, really excellent for helping people figure out what they need to do to find success.
Well, we can generally gauge by just looking at some of the milestones that typically occur in the business, right?
Yeah.
Have you had your first sale?
Yeah.
Have you had, a couple of months of consistent shipments going in? Are you having a $10,000 month? Are you getting to that point where you're going to scale and doing 50,000 or more a month? As a relatively new coach who was doing mid to high six figures for our business, I remember the first time we got a coaching client that was at our same level, and I was a little shocked. I was like, wait, they're doing already what I'm doing. What am I going to teach them? And this is the same thing, though, that happened with this other coaching client I was telling you about. We just went back to the fundamentals. We started talking about, tell me about your last 6 shipments.
Yeah.
What is your average sales price? What does your gross profit level look like? Where can we dig in and find ways to improve? Because I know exactly what happens when you get to that level is you don't have any time to go back and analyze your business.
Right.
You're looking for that P&L that you get from your accounting team. That's usually like 4 to 6 weeks rear view mirror. And then you get one at the end of the year, but they don't really break down your, let's say, ASIN level expenses and your overhead expenses and tell you how you can improve your profitability and stuff like that. So it's nice to be able to, what do you always say? Like, I can do this for other people, but I have a hard time doing it for myself.
Yeah, right. Exactly. I'm at I can clean my sister's house. I know exactly where to put everything and get it all organized. My house, but she can do it for me.
Right.
She can come over here and just organize everything, have no problem.
Right.
That's the way it is sometimes. And often I have coaching sessions that are not teach me how to do ABC structures, things that are tactics, right? That's the word I'm looking for. Thank you. Teach me how to do this. A lot of times it's I got that, I got this. Here's where I'm having a trouble. Well, I have the same kinds of troubles, but what we can do is go, okay, let's talk about that. Let's brainstorm some ideas to try to solve that issue. If we put a little effort and a little focus on that issue, a lot of times we can find a way to get past that just by, having somebody as a sounding board. Coming up with, a lot of times since we coach so many people, I've seen other people have these same issues. And I can say, hey, I've seen people deal with that this way. I've seen people deal with that this way. Here's what I do in those kind of situations. Let's brainstorm and see what feels right for you to try. A lot of times that's the case. And, Jim says it all the time. People who are successful in business or in sports or in, many, many different places in life, parenting even, they have coaches. Not because they need to learn how to do their job, but because they need someone to talk out and brainstorm and figure out new ways of doing things because they don't necessarily have a peer that they can do it.
I think the perspective is really important in those scenarios as well. You can't do whatever it is you're doing while looking in the mirror and have an objective viewpoint or have objective feedback about it.
Right.
But someone who is observing you can.
Yes. And other people maybe can see something in you that you don't see yourself. So, anyway, the point is coaching is an important part of a lot of people's business. We love doing it. And it's going to be different depending on what your needs are. Yeah, where you are and what your needs are.
Well, let's just take a couple of minutes and talk about this workshop we have coming up.
Okay. Yeah, I'm excited about that.
So now I got to make sure I got to get my dates right here. So let me pull up the calendar.
Yes, don't tell them to come on the wrong date. So the Proven Conference, I'm very excited about the Proven Conference.
Yeah, Proven Conference is May
25. 29, 30.
31st.
Okay.
Okay.
The last 3 days in May.
Last 3 days in May. And we're doing this Path to 100 ASINs Workshop on the 27th and 28th, so the 2 days preceding. Now, I want to make a point of clarification here, because I know when we talk about 100 ASINs, I'm not talking about 100 leads. Okay.
Right.
We're talking about 100 replenishable ASINs
that are continually being replenishable and refreshed.
Stop me! I'm gonna do math on camera.
Oh no! Please stop! Please don't.
If I had 100 ASINs that I was replenishing every month, and each of those ASINs sold 10 units, I would be selling 1,000 units. If my average sales price was $25, that's $25,000 a month in sales. Okay.
I think that's right.
All right. So
we'll hear about it if it's not.
What do we need to do to get to 100 ASINs of replenishable ASINs? Well, we got to test. We got to test ASINs. And how do we know which ASINs to test? Well, we need to go through some work to figure out what that is. This is what we're covering in the workshop.
Yes, we're going to spell this all out.
We get into the fundamentals of what is a viable ASIN, what's a testable ASIN, what's a replenishable ASIN, how do you gather your ASINs, how do you analyze your ASINs?
And yeah, how do you know which ones you're going to replenish this week? How do you know when you're not going to replenish that one for now?
Yep.
How do you know, we say the best ones, what are the best ones? How do you know that? So this is not just for new people that have not begun, who have not started sending shipments in yet. This is for people like who you were just talking about, who he had already had a pretty good, he was over $10,000 when he...
No, he wasn't. But
close.
Yeah.
Yeah, when he came... Well, anyway, the point is a lot of people are.
Yes.
And it's not because they're still trying to understand that. It's because they need a system to continue this throughout their business so that they can take their hands off of that part, go and add another strategy, another platform, whatever the next step is for them. And those people that, like I said, we're having brainstorming sessions about things because we don't do much brainstorming for those types of things in the workshop, but in the workshop, we talk about those things where they go, oh, if I had known that before, I wouldn't have never bought this. I wouldn't have ever started there. So it makes sense to me. So if you're looking for those things to make sense and have some parameters and have some ideas where you can, what's risky or what's less risky, this is the place for you. Come and join us. We're going to dig into this. We're going to really pull out some ideas, and we're really going to explore what's kind of safer, what's kind of riskier.
We focus on frameworks so that you can do the work the same way every time, and then the results you'll be able to measure up against the way you're doing the work and determine, did this work in my favor or not, and do I need to tweak anything, as opposed to what we see a lot of people doing is it depends on which day of the week it is, what time of day it is, as to what decision they're going to make. Yeah,
exactly. And that's very ambiguous. So what a framework does, the other thing that a framework does for you is allows you to hand that task off to someone else. Now, this is something that you have to do if you're growing. You have to get to a certain point. That's all one person can do. And if you're making a different decision every time because you're doing it all yourself, you're never going to be able to hand it off. So we can help you put this into a framework, a structure that can be done by you or someone else.
Love it. The workshop, the conference, looking forward to that this year. Like, we're stuck in the middle of winter here. It keeps on snowing and snowing and snowing.
Yes.
And I can't wait to be in Orlando in May.
Yes.
Some nice weather, hanging out with great people. Looking forward to that.
I just love going to the Proven Conference so much. It's so exciting. All right. Do you have a quote for us today, Bob?
I do have a quote. This quote comes to us from Kevin Crowe. Some battles end at the finish line. Others end with wisdom gained.
Yeah. So sometimes it's going to be a tough day, right? But sometimes that's just the wisdom that you get that day. And we can always be grateful for that, right?
I think of something that you have said before, which is, you might be starting down a path and you don't see that there are other paths that lead off from this path or doors down the hallway that, from where you're at, you don't see that. But once you start making progress, all of a sudden you see you might change your path. You might
You didn't
open
realize
a different door. And so that finish line that you thought was out there may not be exactly where you're going because you've gained some wisdom before you got there.
True. And you couldn't see those paths off or those other doors opening until you took some steps down that hallway. Yeah, it's true.
And
it's true.
I mean, that's the more optimistic side of this. The more pessimistic side is you can see the finish line, but you can't get there.
Yeah.
And you're like, okay, well, what did I learn? Right. Sometimes you just need to take the lesson and be okay with the lesson as opposed to not being able to cross the
And
finish line.
sometimes you need to just ask for some help from someone who's walked down this path before and knows how to get you around those obstacles and down to the other end.
I see where you're doing. You just keep tying this back to coaching.
I think coaching, I love coaching. I love doing it so much, working with people one-on-one, working with people in the Kickstart, working with people in the workshop. I just enjoy that so much. I feel it's such a privilege, and I learn so much by doing it.
And this is Coach's Corner.
This is Coach's Corner.
We talk about coaching in here all the time, right?
Yes, we do.
So what is the first thing we tell people when we start working with them if they haven't sold anything yet or if they haven't sold enough yet?
Go find some ASINs.
Go find some ASINs. Let's go test some more ASINs.
Yeah, get some testing going. You guys got this. Let's do it.
All right.
Talk to you soon. See you in May.
Take care.
Hey, thanks for being a part of today's episode. Before you go, let's spend a couple minutes with a good friend of mine, Mr. Jeff Schick of jeffschick.com. He's our resident expert for all things Amazon, Walmart, e-commerce, legal, and policy questions. Put a lawyer on your team for a few dollars a month, someone that can answer these kind of questions that come up all the time as you're navigating your e-commerce journey. So what do you got for us today, Jeff?
So wanted to talk about this concept of, companies like, whether it be retail stores or online stores or brands themselves that don't want sellers' money. So, historically, I've talked to sellers and they come up with these elaborate strategies in order to circumvent a store's policy against resellers. So maybe they go online and they order 5 units across 5 different orders to different addresses and different friends. Or they go and they figure out ways to circumvent these ordering limits, some other strategy. Either way, the concept is that if a store doesn't want your money, don't give it to them. Don't make something there that doesn't exist. If you go to the store and they send you that cancellation email that says, sorry, we don't sell to resellers and we've canceled your order, simply say thank you and move on.
Yes, that's not an invitation to get creative and try to circumvent the system. Correct.
It doesn't matter how good that ASIN is, because the problem that we're realizing is that Amazon no longer takes a receipt, whether it's retail, an invoice, or an order confirmation at face value. So 90% of the time, if they receive a receipt from a seller, they're going to call the person who issued the receipt. And they're going to say, is this receipt real? And if you've gotten really creative and they've got 7 receipts for 5 units each across different addresses, and they start calling and they get, Linda on the phone with a company that says we don't sell to resellers, and they're asking Linda to start validating all these 7 of these receipts to the same seller. Linda is either going to decline to validate any of them, or she may start questioning halfway through and stop validating the rest of them. In which case, you've now got an unverifiable supplier problem because Amazon can't verify that your invoice is real. So things to watch out for: if an online arbitrage site says that you agree that in the terms of service that these purchases are for individual consumption and that you agree not to resell the products, that's a big red flag not to buy from that site, because there's a chance that if they're saying that they don't sell to resellers, or especially if they have really bold language like we do not sell to resellers and you agree that you're not going to resell our products, those are all indications that if they receive a call from Amazon, they may simply hang up the phone and say, we're not validating. Goodbye.
Yeah. They won't have your back. Yeah.
They won't have your back. And unfortunately, when that happens, it can be the prettiest receipt in the world. It can have every element that's required, phone number, address, all that stuff. But if Amazon can't validate that it's real, it's still denied. And if you're under review for authenticity, your account will, potentially be shut down and stay shut down.
Yeah. Great warning. Yeah. So you want the retailers to have your back, the distributors, the wholesalers, you want them to have their back if the receipt or the invoice, if Amazon calls to validate those things. Yeah, it makes total sense. And, the thing that we've always seen that has always rubbed me the wrong way, we've never taught it, we've always discouraged it, but people will try to get the discounts that they don't deserve, right? They'll try to say, hey, 70% off if you're a veteran. Like, all right, well, let's really tap into this, man. And let's load up on this veteran discount and try to get, like you said, ship it to friends and that sort of thing. Don't do that, because if those receipts and those transactions are reviewed at some point by the person you bought it from, the retailer you bought it from, for example, or the website, like, who's this clown trying to take advantage of our discount? No, those aren't valid invoices. We wish we hadn't sold to that guy. If the retailer doesn't have your back, don't buy from them. That's great. And there's so many good places you can get inventory. It's just not necessary to play those games.
Exactly. And then there's also just from the ethical side too, like things like the veterans discount, teachers discount, first responder, anything that I think it's ID.me is what's used for validation. Mm-hmm. You shouldn't be using ID.me when you're purchasing stuff. First off, I'm pretty sure one of their terms of service says you agree that this is for personal use and not for resale. Right. But it takes away the discount from people that actually have earned it and deserved it, because now you're transferring, someone that wants to buy this, product. Maybe the retailer's only set aside 15 units for veterans, and you just bought all 15 of them, and now you're selling them to non-veterans at a discount on Amazon. And those other 14 veterans that might need this product, let's say it's, something like a massage roller for, helping with, back pain that they got from serving in Afghanistan, they now can't get it because you've taken that discount and given it to somebody in California that, never served our country and
just a normal consumer. Yeah, right. Yeah, the ethical lines there are very clear in my mind, and it's just not necessary again to do that kind of aggressive, shady deal, trying to seek out additional discounts. Because again, you want the retailer to have your back is the bottom line. If Amazon calls them, you want them to be in cooperation with you. And there's so many ways that you can do that and stay above board. So yeah, great tip. Thanks for pointing that out to us. It's advice we've given for years around here, but it sounds like Amazon is starting to, they're not going to take your word for it. Just because you got a good receipt or invoice, they might call the number on top. And if that number, people on the other line don't like you, you have some trouble.
Exactly. Same thing goes like if you're really rude to a store clerk and you're doing retail arbitrage, like maybe the store manager comes and says, hey, stop buying products here. We don't sell to resellers. Mm-hmm. And I've had sellers that get kicked out of the stores and they were really rude to the store manager after they'd already bought stuff saying, I hope you lose your job or things like that. Well, guess what happens when Amazon calls that local store number and talks to the store manager and gets that receipt validated? They probably remember your name. They probably remember the transaction.
Yep.
Yeah. That's not going to go well for a seller.
This is a relationship business. Treat people with respect, stay above board. There's no reason to play in the mud on those kind of tactics. Correct. Yeah, great tip, man. Well, I appreciate you. For the listeners today, get to jeffschick.com, spelled just like the razor, SCHICK, jeffschick.com. Sign up for a few dollars a month. You can put his professional team of policy experts and legal expertise on your side for all things e-commerce, Amazon, Walmart, selling, reselling. You cover eBay too, right?
We do. Yeah. Although eBay is a little bit different just because there's not a ton that can be done on eBay when things go wrong, but we still have worked a good amount of IP claims, things like that.
Cool. I couldn't remember for sure. So that's great. Yeah. You guys really cover the board though.
We do.
Right. Well, thanks for being here, Jeff. Let's do it again next week. What do you say?
Sounds good. Thanks for having me.
Talk to you soon. Bye.